Hello, and welcome to Real Person Reviews. I'm Sam, and I'm a real person. And today I want to talk to you about Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow for the Nintendo DS. And for this review, a few things I do want to mention up front for this. As you can kind of see stuff playing in the background here, I've played in the footage and what I was going to be from the Dominus collection on my Xbox Series X. But I have played the original game. I was actually unable to beat the original game originally. So yeah, that's I'll touch on that a bit, but I'm planning to review this basically more so as just the game itself and as the DS game. And I'm gonna do a review later of the Dominus collection and what this does for these games because like I've already done the Game Boy Advance ones, the three before this. I've done the two DS games after this, so it's finally time I can actually talk about this game finally. Um, and if you want the review to be a bit more like you're new to the series and whatnot, whatever, you haven't played one of the games like this in this Metroidvania style of Castlevania game. You can check out the written review. I've tried to write that more as like this is your first game for this because maybe you got a DS or you got this collection. This is the first one that was for that. So that's where that is if you want it more like that. But for this video review, I'm going to assume you probably are familiar with Aria of Sorrow and potentially, just this kind of Castlevania game to save us a little bit of time. Also, I have the reviews of those other games up there anyway. You can check those out and get a little bit more backstory on that if you'd like. But I think that's everything I need to really preface here. So let's just get right into talking about Dawn of Sorrow. So, like I mentioned, Dawn of Sorrow is the sequel to Aria of Sorrow from the Game Boy Advance. So it's a pretty similar style of the whole Metroidvania 2D platformer exploration game with some RPG elements in there. And the general plot here is that basically this is 1 year after the events of Aria of Sorrow. Soma thinks that his powers have just gone away, but apparently they were just dormant, and they return when he gets ambushed by somebody called Celia Fortner, who is a leader of this cult that is looking to resurrect, or it's not really resurrect Dracula, but they're looking to create a new Dark Lord. And they think that anyone who can kill Soma and destroy Dracula's powers within him will be able to then become the new Dark Lord themselves, because the world needs a balance. If there's a god, there needs to be a Dark Lord to balance it. That's the general idea. That's what they're doing. And after this ambush, they run off to their headquarters to try and, basically as a way to sort of lure him there, which works, because eventually himself and his friends end up all showing up at this hideout, which just so happens to be a really big castle. Well, wouldn't you know? And it basically becomes a thing where again you have a similar stuff of going through here, this big world, trying to fight enemies, leveling up, getting weapons and items, defeating bosses. The whole works, the whole 9 yards you're already used to. They did bring over the soul system from Aria of Sorrow, so the same way the souls work there, yeah, they work the same way here as well. But they've actually added a few new things to the soul system as well. So one of the things is that if you get multiples of certain souls, they will actually increase their power or effectiveness or something. They'll become more useful if you stack those. Another thing is that they've added in the ability to fuse souls into weapons to create new weapons, stronger weapons. And these kind of have this upgrade path that you can go down, eventually just creating the ultimate weapon of that weapon class. And it is a little bit easier to collect souls now, but you will be needing to use them more for, leveling up your souls and for putting them into weapons. Eats up a soul to do that. So there's that new mechanic put on top of here. There's also, some new visual stuff too. It's a little fancier because it's, there's some pseudo 3D stuff going on because it's a DS game. They want to show a little bit of that stuff off. So there's a little bit of technical, enhancements here, for sure. And then they do introduce another new thing is that you get the ability to basically switch between two different loadouts, essentially. At the press of a button, you can have like an A set and a B set. and that set includes, your set of your 3 souls and whatever equipment you want on. You can have 2 different sets, so you can build like a thing for here's one for adventuring, or here's one for grinding, or here's one for um, fighting bosses, whatever. You have like more options there. You can switch those on the fly instead of just being in the menu all the time. Another thing that keeps you out of the menus is that because there are 2 screens, the top screen can be toggled between an information screen telling you things like, if you've already had this enemy soul, what are they weak against, what do they drop, this kind of things. There's a little bits of information on those, your current like gold experience stats, how much you need to level up, whatever. There's a little stats and things there, or you can have the map up there as well, so you don't have to go into your menus to check the stats in the map constantly. And They also implement, because it's a DS game, some touchscreen things. One of those are these little breakable block things that you can hit. Whatever you touch them on the screen, they will break, and you have to break them usually in certain ways to get yourself through, make paths and whatnot. There's a few sections of that. Another major element here are these magical seals. You'll find them somewhere in the castle. You'll find a seal, and you use that basically to unlock boss doors. It's a little pattern that'll be drawn in this circle. You can practice those if you want, but you don't really have to. It's not required except for when you're fighting bosses. Basically, whenever you beat a boss or you get it weak enough, then the seal will show itself. It'll do a quick preview of the thing you have to draw with a single stroke or whatever, and do it fast enough and accurately enough. And if you do it successfully, then you will defeat the boss. If you do it too slow, or if you're too inaccurate, it won't work. The boss will regain some of its health. You'll have to beat it down some more to try again. And once again, also, I'll mention that in order to get, there's multiple endings. So in order to get the best ending, you will have to do some classic Castlevania cryptic bullshit to get there as well. So you may need a guide still, but there are definitely fewer things here where you really need it. They try to give you some more hints and things throughout the game, so you don't have to rely on outside resources or lots of guesswork for these things. And there's also, if you beat the game with the best ending or the worst ending, you can get a bonus mode called Julius mode, but more on that in a bit. So, for the actual just main meat of this game, for the regular game, there's definitely a lot to like here. It's very handy that they've made it. The drop rate of souls seems to be much better. I think it's a pretty good pace of, you're finding new areas with lots of cool details to look at with the great visuals and whatnot. Finding new enemies and cool enemy designs. It definitely keeps itself fresh and interesting, even if you are taking your time to meticulously try to grind some of these things. But they also have this focus on the soul system that works well with everything, because taking your time trying to, get all the souls, to get multiple souls to level things up, and get extra souls to put into your weapons, that's all. It goes into the thing of, you just want all these souls because, what abilities do I get? What things can I do with them? If they're not immediately helpful to me, maybe if I power them up, they will be. Maybe in certain situations they will be, and maybe they'll be good for my weapons later on. So they do a really good job of making it, really enticing to try to get all the souls that you can. You want to get them all, and you want to have multiples of them. They've really done a good job of making that, baked into the whole gameplay. It also meshes well with the RPG elements of just grinding on enemies. You're naturally going to be getting more XP, you're going to be getting stronger, and so it's going to help you overall in the game anyway. And you need the souls to do things for exploring and solving these little puzzles and things. So it all kind of goes together at a good pace. The game isn't too terribly long. It's not too short, and it isn't it doesn't seem like it drags on anywhere. So I think it's got a lot going for it in that sense. Having the quality of life changes are also awesome. I love being able to just switch to different things, like the different loadouts on the fly, so I don't spend as much time re-equipping things for different, scenarios. And I like having, little things for quick references for the map and info and that kind of stuff is really handy to just have out there. Again, there's a lot less time of me pausing and looking at stuff. There's a lot more time me just, taking a glance at something that's there and then continuing to move on. I really like that. So that, and the weapon thing too, trying to make your own really cool weapons and stuff. I don't know. It's all very fun. Feels very intuitive, and it feels like they really did a lot to try and take what was already good about the previous game and improve upon it and add to it. And I really like that. What I don't like are a few of the things. Some of them are nitpicky. I mean, I've already mentioned the bullshit of like, they do give you some hints and stuff of what you did wrong if you're getting the bad endings, but they still have you doing some stupid cryptic Castlevania bullshit, as is tradition, in order to get the best ending, which I don't care for. The whole breaking blocks thing when you're touching on the screen is silly. It's okay, it's fine. It's just it feels like kind of a gimmick. Like they kind of gave up with it on that. Like at least halfway through the game, they kind of quit doing it. There's also like one thing where like there's a slider puzzle of like rooms you have to move around, and depending on what you're just basically moving these around. Then you have to create paths to reach all the different areas of all the different rooms. So if you're going for map completion, you'll have to do that, and that's kind of a tedious thing. But it also feels like a bit of a. I'm kind of glad that one was just more of like a one-off, because if they had multiple sections of that, I probably would have been more upset. Interesting, but like some of the things just don't really land super well. I think it's a little annoying that with the weapon system, like you're upgrading your weapons with souls. For one thing, I don't like that. Like then you're getting rid of souls, and then you have to go get even more souls. When you do that, it means like that. So even though it's easier to get souls now, it does mean that you have to go and like get even more. So it kind of balances out a little bit there. And the other part about that is some of these weapons have these different like branching paths to turn into different things, but then they also they have like these weird forks in the road, but then they turn into the same thing again if you keep upgrading them. So it's weird they have like this very much a chain of like, this is the best that you can get here. These are all, if there's someone that have like multiples that are like of the same tier, but they go into different things depending on what soul you had put into that. I don't know. It's kind of confusing to explain, but basically imagine that you're going through a straight path, then there's branches, but then the branches come back together again. They kind of have a few of those do that. I don't know. I think that, however, probably there are two things that really annoy me the most about this game. Two things that I think are actually pretty bad, because some of these other things are just kind of little nitpicks. They're not really that bad. The things that bother me the most are that there's with the soul thing, if you're going for full completion, granted you don't need this to get the best ending at least, so that's nice. But if you want to get full completion of the map and the souls, well, thing is, the map is fine, you can do that. But the thing is, if you're trying to put your souls into your weapons to get the best weapons you can get, some of them require boss souls. You only encounter bosses one time. So basically, if you use that boss soul to enhance your weapon to get the best weapons you can get, you're going to end up not having complete, full boss soul completion or whatever. You're not going to have full soul completion because whenever your soul count goes down to 0 again for any particular soul, well, then you need to go get another one to get the percent back up. The percent goes down. Kind of think of it as like if you were playing Pokemon and like you had caught a bunch of Pokemon and then you had released them or traded them to someone else. Well, since you don't own them anymore, does that mean that the Pokedex would just take it away? No, that would be dumb. But that's what this does. And it is dumb, and I don't like it. It's very frustrating. You have to basically go to New Game Plus and play all the way up to the bosses that you had spent on your weapons to get this, to really get that after you've done this. Something I tried to look up, something the game didn't quite tell me or explain to me well, and I still couldn't find that until it was too late. Or you have to not get the best weapons you can get because you don't want to throw the souls at it and lose those in the process, right? So, not to mention just losing the ability you would get by using the soul anyway by itself as just whatever kind of soul it is. That was definitely frustrating, but again, you don't need it for the best ending or anything. You can kind of fix it in New Game Plus, fine. The thing that was really bad, though, the thing that I mentioned kind of more up front here, the reason I didn't beat this before is the magic seals. I hate these things, and I don't think it's any secret that a lot of people hate these things, because they have nothing to do with the rest of the game. They don't work these in an interesting way. They work as keys to get into the boss doors, and then the only other time you'd ever do it, aside from when you're trying to beat the boss, right, is if you're doing the practice thing, to practice it, to beat the boss. It's not used anywhere else for any other thing, so you don't get used to it, you don't train on it. This is the only time you'll have to do it, and it's pretty high stakes, because bosses usually have a lot of health, they can usually do a lot of damage to you, and messing this up a couple times could easily mean, you're dead, and you have to try it all over again, and it may mean more grinding to try and even just have multiple more attempts at it. But it's not baked into any of the rest of the gameplay, and that's really the big issue, is that it doesn't have anything to do with anything else that you're doing. Not only that, but the fact that you're doing this also, this stupid gimmick that's just there to say, hey, see, you can use the touchscreen. This thing also comes into play when it's like, okay, so If you do it too fast, or sorry, too slow, if you don't do it fast enough, it doesn't work. If you do it too sloppy, it doesn't work. If it doesn't work, it doesn't tell you what you did wrong. Obviously, going slower means you're probably going to be more accurate, but if you're too slow, it doesn't work. And if you're going, trying to like going too fast, or whatever, you might be too sloppy. It doesn't work. These two things are at odds, and when you don't know which thing you need to kind of, fix, you're just kind of throwing your, head against the wall and just doing it over and over again, hoping that it works. And with the weird calibration and stuff too, that's why I couldn't beat the game originally, because it just would not allow me to do so. These things were just too difficult to perform accurately and quickly enough for me to actually progress in the game. And that's a pretty big bummer, and it's a pretty big blight on this thing, which thankfully I've only been able to beat because of this Dominus collection allowing me to use button inputs to do it. So that's why I can get through it. But the one other thing, like I said we would get to this, and we will. And this is just a bonus thing. If you get the best ending or the worst ending, you'll get Julius mode, where kind of like Aria of Sorrow, you play as Julius Belmont. You don't really, you can still level up, so your stats will go up, but you're mostly running around with a whip and a few standard abilities you already have. You can explore, free reign over most of the overworld map. Plot-wise, is basically taking the bad ending and saying that Soma Cruz, has succumbed to becoming the new Dark Lord, and it's your duty to try and put his soul to rest. And along the way, you will actually meet up with Yoko and Alucard, which we find out in this weird, for some reason, in the the bonus thing that's not canon for like the story-wise stuff, that Arikado is actually Alucard. It has been this whole time, I guess. Weird they would save the reveal for this bonus mode that's not part of the actual story, but whatever. And you can use their different abilities. Some of them, you might be faster, better with magic. Some of Alucard is needed to fly through things, whatever. It's a way to kind of give you a few more options for playing. And it's a neat little mode for sure. I think it's like, it gives you, I guess it kind of gives you vibes of Castlevania 3 in that sense, and it tries to be like a little bit more of a classic Castlevania, but with the leveling up part to at least make it a little easier in case you are having troubles with the hardcore just beating stuff, you can do that. I think it's a pretty fun mode. I had the most fun with this out of the bonus modes that I've tried in the Castlevania games so far. I didn't beat it though, I only played up until I could try out all the characters, and I was like, I don't really care to beat it. It's cool to have, but again, if you're going to be playing classic Castlevania, you're probably, or at least if you're me, I'm probably just going to play an actual classic Castlevania instead of going into like, I'll play, this bonus mode of this thing. I had to go through the entire game. I'll just play through the whole game again. I don't know. It's weird. But not bad, just different. Overall, I think that Dawn of Sorrow is a really good package. I think that this, the main game of this is very good. Lots of cool things here. I think it's a good pace. I can understand why people love this game. I will say I don't think it's quite as good as Aria of Sorrow. I would recommend you start there instead. I think that's just more solid, even if it doesn't have all the bells and whistles that this one has. And while it is very good, it's obviously held back by, again, the stupid Castlevania bullshit that all of these do. It's bad in all of them. It's bad here too. The soul thing is soul crushing, that you can just screw yourself out of soul completion even though you don't need it, at least. It's still frustrating that they allow you to do that. And make you do New Game Plus, whatever, and don't try to warn you about it. They don't even tell you some other little nitpick things. There's a couple other things I'm sure I could mention, but overall, that and the magic seal thing is really the big deal breaker, honestly. If you don't like those, you have trouble doing those, too bad, because you have to do those to progress through the game. There's no way around it. Again, that's why I'm looking forward to talking about this Dominus collection in general as a whole, for what it adds here to make it more playable this way, because on the actual DS, I got rid of the game. I sold it because I just couldn't progress in it. I just couldn't do it. I really tried, because I really like these games. And it just wasn't happening. And I think that I'm not the only one that had that problem, and I think other people will. You might have that problem. So, don't beat yourself up about it too much. And, we'll look forward to the review, but this isn't also just ending. The ending is a plug for reviewing the Dominus collection of all 3 DS games, and whatever, and what this does for them and that kind of thing. And I guess in the comments for this, I would like to hear what do you think about Dawn of Sorrow and the Magic Seal thing and whatnot. What you think of this compared to the prequel Aria of Sorrow? How you think they compare to each other? What do you like more and why? What's your favorite of the DS games? What's your favorite Castlevania game in the Metroidvania style? All that fun stuff, all that good stuff. I would be interested to hear that. But yeah, I don't know. Like I say, it's just it's tough because it's only a few things holding this thing back from being a really good game, and everything else is really fun and enjoyable except for the soul thing and the magic seals. So that's why if I'm gonna I probably think a while here and reevaluate for my rankings, but this definitely is not going to be at the top. Its predecessor is definitely above it, and that's a shame for how much they tried to make this better. To have a couple of silly things just totally tank it in the whole comparison here. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to overlook something that can be a make or break for the whole game and has nothing to do with the rest of the mechanics of the rest of the game. I can't stress that enough how much I hate that and that it's stupid and I hate it. But let me know if I just suck that bad, if you had zero problems with it. And what you think of it, if you think it shouldn't have been there, if you would play it if they'd taken it out, whatever. And hey, if you're watching this too and you're already seething about that because you've hated that for so long, the spoiler here is that you can just do the button inputs on the Dominus collection. On every platform you can get this on, you can just do button inputs, and if you fuck it up once, then it'll show you which buttons you're supposed to hit, what the sequence is, and then you can just do it, and you can progress with the game that you're actually trying to play, instead of spending a bunch of time trying to draw a thing that you only need to do to beat a boss that you already actually beat. There's hope. There's light at the end of the tunnel. It is here. It's this. Okay, that's good. Look forward to the reviews of the Dominus collection and the Advanced collection. I'm on a Castlevania kick. I'm hoping to hit these, and I'm hoping to hit Symphony of the Night finally. I did start it and then I quit, so I'm looking to restart that and give it a proper shot. We'll see how long the sparks fly, how long the juice lasts before I'm me being hyped about playing these. But it's been pretty fun. So hopefully you guys don't mind that I took a zillion years to. I think my last review on one of these was 2018 or something. So it's been a little while since I talked about all these Castlevania games, but still playing them. I'm still getting through them.